Life podcast. It's been a while, hasn't it, Luke? We touched base, quite a few years ago during COVID, and then a little bit after COVID, I think it was, when I started caddying for you. But yeah, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, too bad. We've just gone through our life story for the last 2-3 years.
Catching up.
So we haven't seen each other for a while. No, obviously, I know who you are and what you do. And what I want to do is I want to cover 10 areas with you about who you are now and obviously what you were before. And about your successes that you've had over the last few years. So let's start with the simplest one and the most obvious. How did you get into long drive, my friend? Obviously, you've been a traditional golfer before that. You always had speed and distance, but what turned you into actually going into sort of the long drive avenue?
Yeah, it's just my friend, really. I'm based down at the Shire, and I've got a really good friend, PGA professional, and he's a bit of a tinkerer, and he went down a bit of a speed journey himself. So he took his club head speed up to, I think, like low 120s from sort of probably PGA Tour average he was originally. So he did a good speed journey, and he one day bought a long drive driver and was sort of experimenting with it. And one day he turned around to me and said, I'm going to do a long drive event. There's one in the UK. I'm going to go ahead and do it. And sort of sparked my interest a little bit, knowing that I was already a long hitter. And, I thought, I'll give it a go. Like I said, I was based at the Shire at the time. So I'm surrounded by Lee Cox. If you don't know him, distance coach and coach to a couple World Long Drive champions as well. So I spoke to him a little bit about it, and he said, why not give it a go, dip your toes in. He thought I could be a good long driver. Long story short, I went to the event. Unfortunately, my friend had an injury, so he couldn't be there, but I still went, and I finished sixth, and I only had my play driver, so I wasn't even using a long drive driver. It was a great event, nothing I'd ever experienced before, full of adrenaline, and just loved it. And then after the event, having finished sixth, I thought, well, I've actually put some effort into training for this and got a long drive driver and figured out how to hit it, because it is slightly different. Then I thought, give this a crack and see what comes of it.
Good stuff. We'll get into the equipment a little bit later, but obviously, like I said, you're originally a traditional golfer, and what I say by that is obviously playing professional tournaments on Clutch Pro Tour and sort of developmental tour level sort of golf. And at the time, obviously, I was caddying for you, and we had some good times on the golf course. But it wasn't, obviously, as you progressed, I guess I don't want to take words out of your mouth, but obviously, how did you find that experience of that sort of early days of developmental tour golf, and what made you switch and go, you know what, I'm going to abandon that and then go down PGA route, and obviously go down the long drive route?
Yes, it's mini tours tough, financially, it's a full-time job. So if you've not got the finances, you have to source it yourself, be at work yourself and find the time to practice. I loved it. I still play, doing my PGA at the moment, so I still have to play so many events, and I want to play as well. So I've not completely abandoned it, but it's sort of taken more of a backseat. So for me, it was tough, but I think for me, I had a lot of early success in long drive, so that's kind of been my motivation. That success I've had, you just want more of it. Becomes addictive. That's sort of where it took my playing took a bit of a backseat. Initially, I went down the PGA route in terms of trying to find cheaper events, play more events, while still earning some income and being in the game of golf. So that was my initial thought behind doing the PGA, and then obviously got a bit sidetracked with the long drive stuff. But I've kind of merged the two quite well. So I sort of try and specialise in that area. Speed, distance is what I find interesting. And obviously I've done it myself, so I kind of have the evidence to prove it. And like I said before, Lee Cox is at the Shire, so I've got so much knowledge that I can absorb from him. So yes, it's been sort of a combination of all that stuff, really.
Definitely, and obviously, like you said, Lee Cox has worked, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's obviously worked with Joe Miller and a little bit with Martin Borgmeyer as well. Obviously, he's quite a big hitter in the world of long drive as well. So, yeah, you are in pretty good hands there when it comes to Lee Cox. Like I said, to dive into his little brain box every 2 minutes when you can is ideal, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna put two sections together here. I've got them separately, but I guess they kind of go hand in hand. One was called your training regime, and one was called physical fitness. Obviously, long drive is a completely different sport to your everyday golf. Obviously, you probably use different muscles. You're bending. I don't know if anyone's ever seen anyone swing a long driver. They get into some really funky positions. So yes, obviously, in your early days of that transition from right, okay, I've come sixth, I've not really put much effort in, to where you are today. What's your training regime changed like in your physical fitness, and what do you need really to be able to do this sort of type of sport?
Yeah, sure. So from a physical standpoint, not really anything's changed, to be honest. I still have the same split, 3 days a week. I found when I was playing that was the most manageable for me. When we were away on the road, trying to get the workouts in, if I was programmed to do 5 days in the gym, that just became impossible. One, to find a gym, and two, to be able to recover. So for me, I still keep it the same. The training's not changed at all. Still with the same goals of, trying to increase strength, robustness. So creating a strong, robust body that can withstand the physical demands of swinging, because it is tough on the body. More so at the long drive level, because of all the force that you're putting through your body. I'd say more so from a physical standpoint, it's been the recovery side of it. With the speed training that I have to do for the long drive, like I said, it's taxing on the body. I've had sort of more niggles and that these last few years than I did when I was playing professional golf. It just because I'm getting older, but that doesn't help. Yeah, I've had to manage the workload and really sort of understand, listen to my body, and know when it's okay to take some time off. But in terms of the actual strength and conditioning program, it's been exactly the same. Other training, like speed training, obviously there's not as many areas to practice. When I was playing professional golf, it's just driving, but it's quite intense in terms of the speed training that you have to go through. You're pushing your body to the limits, in terms of the speed it can produce, and it's a lot of repetitions. And it's not just how fast you can swing it as well. It's been more, when you get close to an event, it's more ball speed oriented, because you can swing a club as fast as you want, but if you're not maximising the ball speed, it's not going to go anywhere. So, things like that, maximising the ball flight as well, making sure that's optimal, correct launch, spin. There's a lot more of a technical aspect that goes into it than people realise. It's not just guys swinging it as fast as they can. It is, but there's more to it.
Yeah. And I was gonna allude to that. Like, there is obviously a very high technical element to what you're doing. It's not just like you said, get a long driver, try and hit it as hard as you can and hope where it goes. There is a lot into it. And I know when I used to caddy for you, I knew you was very much into that technical side of things, and obviously you wanted to know how high does this come out, spin, all that type of stuff, so you can optimize your game. So yeah, I definitely think people don't really understand the technical elements that go into it. So one of the questions I always have in my brain, and when I'm watching stuff on YouTube or social media or Instagram and stuff like that, is how does, obviously because you were a golfer before, I'm not sure if Martin Borgmeyer was a player before, or did he go straight into long drive? But how does that relate?
He's a decent player. I think he plays off like 3 or around scratch, so he's a decent player. Yeah, most of them are. Sorry, you carry on.
No. I was just saying, the question was, how can you relate that back to playing normal golf, and are you able to switch back into that mode, or does the long drive in you come out when you're playing those type of rounds of golf?
Yeah, so having come from a playing background, I can distinguish the two quite well. And I think also having that technical knowledge from being a decent player, and obviously what I've learned through like the PGA and my time as a golfer, I kind of understand the technical elements that I have to switch between the two. And I say this now, now that I know this, but when I was playing golf, the elements that actually made me a good long driver were actually hindering my playing swing. So now I understand that I'm actually hitting the ball better than I ever have on the golf course. So, it's kind of just the understanding of what produces a good swing, controlled swing on the golf course for me, and also then switching it up and, doing a long drive swing. because they're different, but they're not two worlds apart. That I would say the long drive swing is actually just an exaggerated version of a playing swing. You're trying to max the amount of club head speed you can produce in a golf swing. At the tour level, it's just sort of toned down. You just don't see as bigger values as you do when in long drives.
I guess the only person that kind of transcends that at the moment is obviously big man Bryson DeChambeau, and obviously he took it to the tour and he's dialed it back a little bit. But purely because obviously, like you say, he's probably not gaining as much as he thought he would do from doing that, or it's taking too much of a toll on his body. But obviously, he's dabbled in a bit of long drive, and I'm not sure if you've been in an event where he's been. But how do you feel like he's kind of helped the sport as well?
I think he's just brought a light to the fact that not just him actually. If you think about other golfers, Fitzpatrick's done a good job of. Obviously, he's been doing a lot of speed stick training with the stack and Fitzpatrick, but Bryson took a more holistic approach, obviously building his body as well as making like technical changes. So he's taken a more holistic approach, whereas Matt Fitzpatrick has focused more on the speed training side of it with the stack. So yeah, I think he's brought a light to the fact that speed and distance are skills that you can build upon. I think early on it might have been the idea that only the chosen few had clubhead speed, but everyone, in my opinion, everyone can gain distance and gain clubhead speed. Everyone's got a limit, but it's getting yourself closer to that limit. And it is just a skill like any other facet of the game. If you want to practice, want to get better at chipping, you go and practice chipping. You go, source some coaching. The same with distance and clubhead speed, ball speed, all of that. So, it's just a skill that can be learned.
Good stuff. Moving more into that technical mastery, and obviously you said about an equipment choices. Again, I'll lump these two sections together because I feel like they do kind of go hand in hand, but you can answer them separately. But I was going to start with the technical mastery, and I think you touched on it a little bit, but obviously we just go through it again. Like, what do you think of the technical aspects, particularly in your swing, but also what you need to maximise for distance and accuracy that people could probably look into and see if that could work for them, or to be a decent long driver, what is it you actually need? You just touched on club head speed there. Messing around, I've swung a golf club as hard as I could, and I got up to, I think it was 127, but I had no idea where that golf ball was going. I guess over time I could probably work on that. But if I dial it back to my normal golf swings, around 115, I think 116. So yeah, I'd like to think I can hit it far, but obviously not as far as I would like. Potentially could.
Or potentially could.
Yeah, I'd probably go longer. Yeah, or potential. Yeah. So yeah, just to touch on those aspects of what you think is obviously key for yourself, and then obviously what generally a long driver would need to have in their locker when it comes to numbers and stuff like that.
Yeah, so in terms of increasing clubhead speed, there's three ways really. Strength and conditioning. So like I said, touched on before, building a stronger and more robust body. So essentially building a bigger engine that can produce more force. That's going to increase clubhead speed. And you've got the speed training side of it. So basically that's just training the central nervous system to swing at maximum output. For example, like you said, your 127 would be your max, but you don't know where the ball's going to go. If you could raise that 127 to maybe, just pick a number, 130, 135, your on-course playing speed would actually increase with it. So say you swing on the course at 75, 80%, your new 75, 80% effort is going to be quicker. So that's another element. So that's two. You've got strength and conditioning and speed training. And then the third element is technical. So maximizing your efficiency within your swing for more clubhead speed. So they're the three areas when it comes to clubhead speed. And for like general golfer, I'd say they're severely undertrained. So they're not strong enough or robust enough. And then people don't really do speed training. Speed training doesn't take, you could probably do 2-3 times a week, 20 balls after a range session, just swinging as fast as you can. Like you said, not worrying about where it's going, but trying to raise that max effort swing speed. You could start there. I think that would be a good place to start for most people. And then technical changes, like just finding a coach that knows what they're talking about. And also, you can go to specialists like force plate specialists or 3D specialists or people like Lee Cox, that know what they're talking about. But they're the three areas in terms of clubhead speed.
Good stuff. I feel like I've never really touched on speed training, if I'm honest. I think I've done it. I've had one person test me on it, and I've done it in obviously in a simulator with your mates. You go, right, swing as hard as you can, and that's where I got the 127 from. But yeah, I've never actually looked into adding that to my training regime. It's probably something I need to actually look into. Like I said, if I'm not intentionally going out there to swing it at 131 or 132, but if that becomes, like you said, raises my my 75-80% up by 5 miles an hour, then obviously I'm gaining
That's
distance
huge.
and everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
No, good stuff.
I mean, sorry, I was just gonna. That's the same. I try and maximise in my own long drive practice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those three areas. So it's the same for a normal golfer and for myself.
Okay, so then just so that people know at home, what is the maximum you've ever swung a golf club at? Obviously, club speed, and then what would you say is your optimal swing speed and ball speed together?
So 155 mile an hour clubbed speed is my max, and I've had 225 mile an hour ball speed. So they're my two max numbers. So for me, if I can compete, my goal this year is to compete at around that level. 155, if I can be competing at that with 220 plus ball speed, then that's and hitting good shots. This is another thing. So people think long drivers don't hit good shots, but at the top level you have to, and everyone does. So if I can hit it 155 mile an hour, 220 plus ball speed, hitting good shots in the grid, then it's going to be dangerous. So that's sort of my goal.
So with those two numbers, then what would be your sort of optimal average carry distance on that?
So probably
Or is it
around
too hard to?
it's probably around 400. I'd say. Obviously, it's all condition dependent, as you would know. But I'd say if I had to give an average, it's probably around 400. Yeah.
And then obviously just touching into the equipment side of things, obviously you said at the start that you entered that first tournament, finished sixth with a normal driver. It'd be interesting to see what you'd done if you actually had a long driver.
Right, I tried the long driver a few times before I actually went to the event. But I couldn't hit it because it's like, I think it was 3 degrees. I use a 2.5 degree now, but 3 degrees back then, I couldn't get it off the floor. Yeah, I had to use the play driver.
Yeah, but that was going to be my question. Was that obviously the equipment is completely different, and it's not just pick up a club and hit it as hard as you can. So, what are the main differences when it comes to a normal driver that I would play with compared to your long driver?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. My play driver that I've got at the moment is double X extra stiff, 45 inches long, and it is 8 degrees. But my long driver is a 2.5 degree, 48 inches long, and we have sort of special long drive heads, so it's not one you can get off the shelf. And then I've got a 25 gram grip on it, so it's half the weight of a normal grip. And the shaft itself is actually the equivalent of a lady's senior flex. Okay. So it's completely different in terms of flex to what I play on the course. So it's just to maximise the amount of whip and the amount of clubbed speed we can produce. Lighter grip, again, a bit of a personal preference thing, grip, but for me, lighter grip, the whole club's lighter, can swing it faster. So yeah, that's the sort of the difference.
I've watched a couple of, I must admit, I'll be honest, I haven't really watched much long drive stuff. It's not really been in my sort of peripheral of watching content, but obviously I see the odd occasional bit from yourself. I see obviously Martin Borgmeyer. I follow those type of people. I've actually been at the range at Essendon when Joe Miller's been hitting clubs and just stood there for 5 minutes going, what is he actually doing here? But obviously you see a lot of it. Obviously a lot of them are getting themselves geared up for it and obviously breathe in and you see, again, I'm using Martin Borgmeyer as an example because I see him at the most, but he's screaming, he's shouting, he's doing what he needs to do. And I guess that's obviously part of the mindset and preparation. But what is it like? I've not seen yourself in that situation or those tournaments, but what sort of toll does it take on the sort of mindset and the preparation, and what do you need to do to get to that level to be able to hit the shots at that speed in that arena and make sure they stay within that? Was it free? How wide is the grid?
The grid. So it depends on the event, but they're sort of anywhere between 50, 60 yards wide.
Okay.
I mean, I've played one that was 35 yards wide and it tapered down to 17 yards wide at 400. But yeah, it depends on the event, but typically it's the yards.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously, why are they doing that? And then what do you do yourself to actually get to that level to be able to hit those type of shots?
So when we're speed training, obviously it's high intensity. We might be hitting anywhere between 70 to 150 balls in a session. We're trying to keep on top of trying to keep the momentum going. We're trying to swing it as fast as we can. Really have to get really jacked up to swing at those speeds in training. So, it's kind of similar mindset when you go into the events. It's high energy. You want to keep the momentum. You've got 6 balls to hit in 2.5 minutes. So, you can't be slow in between. You've got to sort of keep the momentum going. I'd say in terms of, obviously you've got to hit the ball in the grid, so you do have to hit good shots, but I think it all just comes from the preparation. Like I said, I'll do speed training, but then closer to the event, I will make sure that I'm hitting good shots. I'm hitting the middle of the club face, and that just translates into the actual event. So comparing it to normal golf, it's definitely different, but I think it just comes part of the preparation.
So obviously, going to move into the highlight of your long drive career so far is obviously winning the European Long Drive Championship. Just so everyone understands, how long did it take from the moment you started that, picking up the club, finishing 6th, to then getting through to the final and winning it? How long was that process for you?
My first event was July 2022. That was my only event that year in the UK. And then the following year, I did a full season in 2023. I think I did probably 1, 2, 3. It was probably my 5th or 6th event, the European Championship. Wasn't, and it was. I kind of felt it coming because it was, had a good finish, came 6th. I didn't have a good first event in 2023, and then each event after that I was getting better, and I'd finished in the semi-finals, and I knew I was sort of getting close, and it just sort of all came together at that championship. So yeah, it was really cool. So it was probably my 5th, 6th, and that was when was that? September maybe. So it was just over a year.
I'm just looking at a picture I took a screenshot of, which is the Open Division finals, which I'll put on the screen for people to see. But, I think it's 21st of September you posted that you were the European Long Drive champion. And I guess as well, so fantastic. Well done, mate, for an amazing achievement. Obviously, not the end of the journey yet. But even through that, and again, I've noticed the name on here that I know from listening to podcasts as well. James Tate from the Bunkered podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Martin Borgmeier's on here. But you got through the qualifying days, if I'm correct, and then you obviously went into the actual divisional finals. You went up against Aaron Lenny, beat him by 11 points. I'll come on to that in a second. And then you get to the semi-final, and who are you pitted against? The man I've mentioned many times, Martin Borgmeier. You managed to get him by 9 points? Sorry, yards. Sorry, my bad. They're yards. My apologies. So 11 yards in the first one. You got him by 9 yards in the second against Martin Borgmeier, and then in the final, no disrespect to Vincent Palm, but you absolutely smashed him by about almost 20 yards. So just talk me through that experience of going through the process, and then and also the sort of the journey again, getting to semi-final against Martin. How did you feel against him? And then once that sort of goal was realised that you won the European Long Drive, just talk us through that entire process.
So coming into the event, I had a lot of confidence, a lot of momentum from the last few events. In the qualifying, in Long Drive, we do like a round robin format, and then we go through rounds until we get to the final, either the final 16 or the final 8, and then we do match play situation up until the finals. In the round robins, I was led each round. So, again, I was just feeling more and more confident as that event went on, and I felt comfortable on that grid. It was the first time that any of us, I think, had competed on that grid. So, I was feeling confident. I could see the shot shape that I wanted. And then we took a break after the round robin when we got to the final. Is it the final 8 or final 16? I can't remember.
It's final 8 in this one, by the looks of it.
Final 8. So we took a break, And then we came back in the evening when it was dark under the floodlights, and we had a crowd. So, I was more excited for that moment. I was looking forward to competing with the crowd and under the lights, and knowing Martin was there, and feeling good. So I just kind of took it all in, and just really enjoyed the whole experience. I knew I was hitting it well, so it was just a case of getting it done, really. And then coming up against Martin, obviously I was nervous, but I kind of drew upon earlier on in the day when I led each round, so I think I had the longest drive of the day up until that point, or one of the longest drives of the day. So I knew the shots were there, so I didn't really not worry about Martin, but I knew I could beat him with a good drive. So and then hit two unbelievable shots in the semi-final against him, and I knew it was pretty much done there, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was cool, really cool.
No, good stuff. Like I said, a wonderful achievement. So again, congratulations. Obviously, that's the high, but then let's talk about some lows. What would you say has been the most challenging aspect of your long drive career so far? At a moment where you've questioned what you're doing, and then obviously, how did you overcome that obstacle? And looking by your smile, there's been quite a few.
Yeah, so it's been more injuries than anything. I've had so many injuries. I had a wrist injury that took me out after my first event in 2022. So I actually did that boxing. What was it? Tore a ligament in my wrist. That took me out until March 2023. So I didn't touch a club until then, which kind of bled into my preparation for that first event in 2023 where I didn't compete so well. And then I've had just niggles here and there, like my back and knees. My knees have given me some trouble for a couple of years now. But it's all about just, knowing when to back off, doing the right physio exercises, and also just, being careful, making sure you're on top of your sleep, stuff like that. So that's been tough. But yeah, in terms of lows, I think having won the Europeans quite early, you kind of, when you do have a bad event, it's just expectations, isn't it? You expect to do well each event, and for the most part, I've kind of, this year I've had three semi-finals. I came 9th in the World Championship, so I've continued to get better. I feel like I didn't have a win this year, but I was close on a few occasions. Yeah, I mean, in terms of other struggles, it's not a sport that's financially lucrative, to be honest. You can't. It used to be. So back in like Joe Miller's day, the money was there, big sponsors. But at the minute, I don't know why. I think COVID might have had a little bit to do with it, but it's not really a sport that you can compete and live off the prize money. For the most part, we're playing for our own entry fees. There's no additional top up to the prize funds.
Oh, right, okay. That's interesting.
It's a shame because it is a sport that everyone that does it, they put their heart and soul into it.
It's quite an entertaining sport as well, really. Again, from what I've watched, it's a very
talented people.
Yeah, I'd say it's more entertaining than watching traditional golf if you turn on the PGA Tour. But I was going to get on to the next part of the question of the podcast was about how you saw the future of long drive golf going. And obviously, I work within golf now, quite luckily, with quite a lot of brands. I'm at the heart of some of the stuff when it comes to the tours. And obviously, you see the big money going into Live Golf, PGA Tours, obviously big investment right now. You've now got TGL as well, with all investment going into that. Do you think that could be a reason why long drive isn't getting the recognition it appears? Because the attention of sponsors and brands are pushed towards those tours and stuff at the moment? Or do you think it over the next sort of 5 to 10 years that long drive will come back again and all that will go forward? And where do you see it in 5 to 10 years' time?
It's an interesting question. I don't actually know, to be honest. I haven't been in the sport long enough to make a judgment of why it's in the position that it's in. Mm-hmm. Everyone I talk to about long drive, everyone loves it. I think it's amazing. I do clinics up and down the country, and everyone that I see at the clinics is starstruck with it. And so I honestly don't know why it's not as popular as I think it should be. So many talented athletes on there. From different sports as well, like powerlifting and bodybuilding and a lot of baseball backgrounds. These guys are. I'm one of the shortest there. And these guys are.
You're not exactly short.
I'm 6'1". And these guys are like 6'5" and 6'7", and built like a brick wall.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't think it's money's going because it's going elsewhere that is the reason why there isn't money in long drive. I don't know why. I'd like to see it get the recognition that it deserves for the players more than anything, because they put a lot of effort in. I know I put a lot of effort in, so to be rewarded even a little bit would be nice, just so that we can continue to do what we do. When we're trying to find financial backing from places, it's tough. It's similar to how it was in mini tour golf when I used to play. Kind of having to find your own finances. So I'd like to see a big sponsor come in and sort of. I've always said this actually since I started long drive, is that I'd like to see someone like a Dana White or an Eddie Hearn, take it and really build it into something like Eddie's done with darts and boxing, something like that. Really turn it into an entertainment and a brand from. So in my head, that would be where I'd like to see it go. How that happens, I don't know. But if he's listening,
Well, seeing that I now work in sports sponsorship and boxing, I probably should take that under my wing and see if I can do something for you. I'll do my best.
Yeah,
I'll make a few phone
hold
calls
to
to
it,
see what
but
I can do. Thanks. No, fantastic. What I want to do, Luke, is just finish on something that you actually just touched on a minute ago. You said you go up and down the country doing clinics to people about long drive. And my final question was, what type of advice would you give someone looking to get into sort of long drive? But I guess you could probably dive into the clinics that you do. And what if someone was to have a clinic with you? What would that entail? And then, what would be your sort of lasting sort of comment to them about wanting to get into long drive?
Yeah, so I do clinics. I've done clinics for golf days, so a bit more of a showcase of what I do. I'll be there hitting balls either on the course or on the driving range beforehand or after. Just demonstrating what I do, just explain my journey, how I got there, what I did, like some tips that they can take away and use, and try and make it a bit fun as well. So, some quirky challenges in there, but I can also switch it up, and I do seminars with my strength and conditioning coach. So we do more informative seminars. So it will be almost like a classroom setting where we go through exactly step by step, more of not the science behind it, but a bit more explanation into how they can take this information and apply it to themselves. So that's been what I've done in terms of the clinics and seminars. So what was the other question?
So if at these types of events, obviously you're giving these people advice. But if you can give them one key piece of advice as to what they should be doing right now to start a career in long drive, what would that be?
I'd say just dip your toes in. If you think you can compete or you think you're good enough, just dip your toes in. Whether it's going to see a long drive coach or just going to an event. So they do like amateur divisions as well. So just going to an event, the nearest one to you, and just seeing, if you can compete, even if it's at amateur level, because you can always sort of push on from there. But everyone in long drive is so welcoming. Everyone's, we're competitors, but we all want to help each other as well. We all travel together. It's quite a tight knit community. So just you can reach out to any of us as well. We'd always give advice. So just seeking the right advice and dipping your toes in would be my recommendation.
I can start that by I've started to see you've started releasing you got obviously on your on your Instagram page right now. You got the free 4-week increased distance speed training guide. So I guess that's a good place to start. So so if anyone wants to pick your brains or get on board with that, head over to Luke's Instagram, which I'll put it into the show notes so you can all guys get it from there. But I think there's a great education into the insight of what long drive is. So dabbled from afar. I watch bits in there. I don't really know too much about it, which I'm ashamed because I know I've been with you for so long, so I should really dive into it a bit more. Yeah, I think hopefully that's given people good insight into what it is and what it takes to get to that level.
Yeah, thanks, Lloyd.